The idea that war serves absolutely no purpose is one that is often raised. Despite this, military all around the globe have managed to come up with some genuinely bizarre weaponry as a result of the unrelenting strain of battle. Everywhere from personal helicopters to anti-tank scooters and whip swords, the annals of history are replete with ideas that were more innovative than they were successful. Let us get ready to charge into the intriguing tales of the most bizarre weaponry in the annals of history that were utterly unsuccessful. 1. The Scooter of Doom, also known as the Vespa 15. Imagine a vehicle that had the mobility of a motorbike and the destructive might of a tank. This thing would be incredible. Take a look at the Vespa 150 Tap. It was not a metaphor. It was a civilian Vespa with a massive American M20 75mm recoilless weapon fastened to its side. This was a concept that was developed by the French in the 1950s. This 250-pound behemoth, which was propelled by a meager 145cc engine, was able to reach a top speed of 40 miles per hour. It was reinforced with a sturdier frame and special gears. The design of the recoilless rifle made it possible for it to fire strong anti-tank shells, which were stowed just beneath the driver's seat, without being destroyed by the backlash. What is the catch? The driver of the paratrooper had to come to a complete stop and physically shimmy the whole scooter so that it was facing the target in order to really aim the device. As a result, they were very susceptible to harm. The strategy of deploying a moped as a tank hunter was quickly recognized as being less than ideal, despite the fact that hundreds were constructed and even saw combat during the Algerian War. Secondly, the gun helmet is an absolute headbang. In 1916, the American inventor Albert Bacon Pratt proposed a device for warfare that would not need the use of one's hands: the gun helmet. The front of a modified military helmet was adorned with a rifle of a medium caliber, which was attached to the gadget. The soldier would do little more than tilt their head in order to aim. What is the mechanism for firing? An apparatus that was designed to enable you to shoot a bullet like a flautist and was a mouthpiece that you blew into. Pratt said that this would even allow blind troops to battle, because to the fact that people instinctively turn their heads toward danger. It should come as no surprise that the defects were disastrous. In addition to the obvious problem of recoil, just picture the entire power of a bullet landing directly on your neck to design was a formula for catastrophe. For a variety of reasons, including accidental fires caused by sneezing, constricted trigger tubes, and the sheer impracticality of the enormous helmet, the United States military decided to quickly abandon Pratt's dome rocker. The Tsar tank, a Goliath on wheels, is the third item. Through the use of the Tsar tank, the Russian military demonstrated its commitment to the larger is better attitude throughout World War I, in addition to being equipped with two 57mm cannons and machine guns. This mobile fortress stood at a height of 30 feet and weighed 60 tons. Its peculiar design was a reverse tricycle, and it included two enormous front wheels and a front roller that was very tiny. It had a crew of 15 people and was powered by an airplane engine. It had the ability to achieve a staggering 10 miles per hour. After witnessing a mock-up made of wood, Tsar Nicholas II gave the instruction to create it. Nevertheless, during the testing that took place in 1915, its fatal fault was discovered. The little back roller was frequently getting caught in soft dirt, which rendered the whole enormous war machine the equivalent of a stationary pit. Almost immediately, the initiative was abandoned. 4. A catastrophe that was propelled by rockets, the Great Panjandrum. During World War II, the British Panjandrum was a wheeled, armed battering ram that was used by the British. In essence, it consisted of two rocket-propelled wheels that were 10 feet tall and were joined by a drum of explosives. It was intended to break past German defenses at a speed of 60 miles per hour and then explode. During the controversial test that took place in 1943, the machine that was almost impossible to control careened uncontrollably as rockets disconnected and shot in a variety of directions. During a later test, the Panjandrum made a course for the generals and admirals who were watching, and just as the final rockets launched, the vehicle exploded violently, causing it to disintegrate. The fact that the project was promptly abandoned demonstrates that there are occasions when increasing the number of rockets is not the solution. The personal death trap, that is the Delackner era cycle, was number 5. The Delachner Aerocycle was a personal helicopter that was supposed to fulfill the role of a contemporary cavalry horse. In the 1950s, handlebars and leaning were used to control the aircraft by the pilot, who was standing on a circular platform above two propellers that were 15 feet in diameter. Stable, simple to operate, and capable of reaching speeds of up to 64 miles per hour. It was a functional success. The difficulty was that the pilot was standing right above enormous rotors that were exposed, and once he was discovered, he was utterly helpless. As a result of two accidents that resulted in catastrophic casualties, the United States military decided to permanently reject the concept of personal flying platforms. Bat bombs and feline saboteurs are the subject of Project X-Ray No. 6. Which was the predecessor of the CIA, was inventive during World War II. The plan called for incendiary devices to be attached to bats, which would then roost in bamboo structures in Japan and set fire to them. Bats were recalcitrant, and they often flew back to their home base, which resulted in a tragic fire at a United States airport. This was despite the fact that President Roosevelt had a personal interest in the matter. Another suggestion was to drop bombladon cats onto enemy ships using a parachute, with the assumption that the cats would swim to the ships in order to get protection. When the cats were unconscious as a result of the trauma of being thrown from an aircraft, the strategy turned out to be unsuccessful. The gun shield and the holy water sprinkler, two of Henry VIII's most curious items during his reign. King Henry VIII was a collector of unusual weaponry. Specifically, he ordered gun shields, which were enormous shields that had a matchlock handgun installed into the middle of them. When faced with a choice between blocking an assault or firing their solitary shot that was clumsily targeted, the wielder had to make a decision. The holy water sprinkler, a gun-mace hybrid, was another weapon that he had. On top of this morning star were 3 cannon barrels, each of which required hand lighting with a hot coal at the same time. When it came to fighting, it was quite impractical, and it was probably more of a ceremonial walking staff to show off the king's authority. This made Henry the 16th century equivalent of a mall ninja. The Urame, also known as the whipsword from hell. The flexible whipsword known as the Urame originates from India and dates back hundreds of years. It is a demonstration of how truth may be stranger than fantasy. The device is made out of a handle that is coupled to a long, flexible metal cable that is laced with blades that are very sharp. A scary metal barrier is created when it is wielded by whirling it in a protective figure-8 pattern. The user is at risk of being maimed if they make a single mistake, despite the fact that it is very effective when used by a master who has trained for years with a cloth imitation beforehand. It is still considered a beloved weapon in the martial art of Kalarapayattu, despite the fact that it is extremely hazardous. 10. The double-barreled cannon. A disaster for the Confederacy. John Gilly, an inventor from the Confederacy, devised a double-barreled cannon that was capable of firing 2 cannonballs that were linked by a chain. The gun was intended to kill whole rows of troops. The chain broke always during the testing process, which resulted in the balls straying off in a variety of directions, causing damage to property and the death of a cow due to unfortunate circumstances, but never striking the target that was intended. The Confederacy acquired it, despite the fact that it had already been shown to be unsuccessful. Due to the fact that it was never used successfully in combat, its usefulness as a signal cannon came to an end. The German ball tank, known as the Kugelpanzer, ranks 10th. One of the most peculiar discoveries made during World War II was the German Kugelpanzer, sometimes known as the ball tank. It was most likely designed for reconnaissance, since this armored vehicle was spherical in shape and moved on to enormous wheels that were attached on the sides. It must have been a terrible and unsettling experience for the pilot who was inside the aircraft, since there was just a small window and no weapons. There was only ever a single prototype that was ever seized by the Soviets, and the fact that it existed is still a mystery footnote in the history of weird military engineering. Explosive bats and spherical tanks are only 2 examples of the fact that the need to innovate in the field of warfare may result in some of the most spectacularly foolish innovations in history. The fact that these failures occurred is evidence of human ingenuity and ambition, and ultimately, it demonstrates the significance of practicality above just being wacky. On the battlefield, which of these weapons that were poorly designed would you be most willing to square off against?